Hi, everyone. Judge Andrew Napolitano here for Judging Freedom. Today is Tuesday, September 30th, 2025. Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski joins us now. Colonel Karen, thank you very much. I don't know if you watched Secretary Hegseth's speech to 800 admirals and generals, but how do admirals and generals feel about lecturing by a guy who's 20 years younger than they are and who was a reservist?
Yeah, this is a big problem. I mean, I think actually that if Hegseth, if he knew what he was talking about, if he had a particular proven expertise and he had something of importance to share with them, I think that they wouldn't be prejudiced against youth. I don't think they're prejudiced against the younger, less experienced person, but I think they are prejudiced against incompetence, which strangely is what, Hegseth is trying to do. He's trying to say, we don't want to have incompetence in the military. Well, he may not be the right guy to deliver that message.
He purports to have a vision of the military, which when he lectures about it just doesn't come off credibly. It's not his fault that he has $1 trillion budget, but he certainly didn't go in there saying, hey, I can do the job at half of this, as Trump once promised during the campaign, to accolades from people like you and me and your colleagues who are former military. He seems to be the MAGA guy in the Pentagon, and there for that reason. Am I misreading this?
No, I mean, I think it's exactly why he's there. He's the guy that Trump can control, that is impressed by Trump, is obedient to Trump. He, in fact, what other job could Pete Hegseth get? I mean, what could he get really? What could he do? He is there because he's Trump's guy. And, I actually didn't watch all of Hegseth's address. I saw bits and pieces of it, and it was pretty disturbing. And then I did watch the president's follow-on, and I was even more disturbed by that.
Well, we'll play you a clip of what the president said, which to me was the most disturbing. We'll deviate from Hegseth for a minute because you raised this.
Yeah.
Truly the most disturbing thing he said. My column this week, I just finished writing it and getting it back from my editor. It comes out midnight Wednesday night. Is called Who Will Protect Us from the Protectors? And it analyzes constitutionally Trump's devious behavior with respect to sending troops into the streets. And I don't know if you're aware of this memorandum he signed purporting to federalize local police and put them under the domain of federal troops. It's profoundly unconstitutional, but it's very, very dangerous. As I was finishing writing this, Chris, this is the cut that we played a few moments ago. Trump said this.
San Francisco, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, they're very unsafe places, and we're going to straighten them out one by one. And this is going to be a major part for some of the people in this room. That's a war, too. It's a war from within. Controlling the physical territory of our border is essential to national security. We can't let these people in. We're under invasion from within. No different than a foreign enemy, but more difficult in many ways because they don't wear uniforms. At least when they're wearing a uniform, you can take them out. These people don't have uniforms. I told Pete we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military, National Guard, but military.
So the military should use American streets with American citizens as a training ground for what? Killing the enemy?
Yeah, sure. It occurs to me as I watch him say that again, and it is unconstitutional. I mean, there's no court that would uphold that, but the problem is he acts, and then we have to wait for the courts to come through. But it's unconstitutional. But it occurs to me that I think Bibi Netanyahu has visited Trump probably 3 too many times this year, because that is the way Israel runs. That's how they operate, and that's how they view national security. They have people inside the country who are enemies, and they have a unitary military defense. There's no National Guard. It's all in one one combined military that does internal and external activities. Trump is not well prepared for any of this, and he doesn't have a background. He doesn't understand. Well, we know he hasn't read the Constitution, but he also hasn't served in the military and he has no background of awareness in how militaries operate, how our military operates, or how anyone's military operates. And his best friend's Bibi Netanyahu, and he listens to Bibi Netanyahu. This is very concerning. It's more, what I expected from this gathering of generals, and I wrote something about it, what I hoped that Hegseth would say. But what I truly expected was that it would be a big nothing. It would be a nothing burger. Nothing would come of it. It was boring. And Hegseth, I think, delivered on that. He didn't have much to say. But Trump actually moved the ball way far close to an own goal. I mean, that was an own goal, frankly. Everything Trump said was hurting us, violating our standards. I'm sure that those generals and admirals that were sitting there, while I don't agree with most of them, and I really consider them to be a parasitical class on this country, but even them, I think, were shocked at the kind of lack of knowledge that Trump exhibited. And he spoke forever. He just talked and talked.
He was like, it was like one of Castro's talks. The comments he made at the end of his speech, which we just ran, I don't know if it was in the scripted part, are consistent with this special memorandum that he signed, which my column is about, which got very little publicity, which if you read it is chilling. Yeah. He's directed the feds to disrupt groups that are anti-Christian, anti-American. How do you define what's anti-American? This is a disruption based on speech. We do have a clip from Hegseth, which we'll play now. There's a internet acronym at the end, which I can't translate literally, because if you translate it literally, it has a 4-letter word in it that we don't use here. But here he is.
Should our enemies choose foolishly to challenge us, they will be crushed by the violence, precision, and ferocity of the War Department. In other words, to our enemies, F-A-F-O. If necessary, our troops can translate that for you.
So, F around and find out. That's what the military phrase is. He also wants 65-year-old generals to pass a PT test twice a year, and then, like Trump boasting, if I'm the president, I can fire whoever I want, he boasts he's the Secretary of War and can make you do it. These are bad times, Karen. Look, the military is bloated. It doesn't need $1 trillion, although Trump championed and made that happen. They haven't won a war in 80 years. But a 45-year-old treating these guys who've been in the military their entire career and have risen to the ranks of general and admiral, talking to them like they're new recruits. I don't think this works.
No, well, clearly they noticed they had pauses where they expected applause to happen, or punchlines and that kind of thing, and they didn't get that. They didn't get that applause. I think, I'm not going to defend the military, but a lot of those guys, based on that they're currently active duty, they came of age in the Bush 43 wars, in the Middle East, and we know the lessons of those wars. You don't lie about your intel, you don't make up stuff, you don't try to nation build. I think a lot of that stuff has been absorbed by our military. Now, that doesn't mean any of those generals or any group of those generals can fix the Pentagon, because they can't. But I think they are far more aware of the complexities and the challenges facing our military than Hegseth is. I mean, the naivete of him to many of the things that he said, but the last one, the FAFO, that is almost a casual. It's just so inappropriate, unbased in reality. It's crazy. And of course, Trump's speech, when he talked about all the arms that we're going to sell to people, and how far ahead we are technology wise, it's almost as if that is what Trump wants to be true. But the reality is, and these generals that he was addressing also know the reality of our weapon systems and where our acquisition system has brought us. And our policy towards Israel has brought us. I mean, we ran out of patriots. Why? Because we gave them to Israel. We are fomenting wars and ruining our own ability to maintain the bare essentials. And the generals and admirals know this. They know this far better. So I just thought both Hegseth and Trump were very unprepared for something that was quite expensive in terms of bringing all these people back on short notice. And you would think you would be coming back for something really important. And it not only wasn't important, it was insane. So I don't know. I think this backfires. It backfires on the Trump administration if that's what they thought they were going to do.
Who wants to join the military today? Isn't that Hegseth's most serious and pressing issue?
Yeah, well, he thinks many people are joining, but I don't know if he's looked at the unemployment statistics and the layoff and pink slip statistics that we have. Military always does well when in recruitment when the economy is bad. Now, Trump doesn't admit that the economy is bad. He I don't know where he's getting his information from, but people need jobs, and military jobs, especially going in at the entry level, are great jobs because they will take just about anybody and train them to be whatever they need. So I don't even get that he's saying like people want to come into our military now. I don't buy that. I think these guys are so far out of touch. And what surprised me is I didn't think they were that far out of touch. And when I watch this, I'm just going, oh my Lord.
Colonel, watch the very end of his speech where, of course, he's expecting a standing ovation as he leaves. Watch what happens.
Move out and draw fire, because we are the War Department. Godspeed.
Room, attention.
Yeah, that's crazy.
How many hands were clapping? I didn't hear any.
No. The thing started late too. They had those guys assembled in there for I think it was 25 minutes late, which I don't have a real problem with. But on X, a lot of the enlisted people or people who had been enlisted in the military years ago, they said the generals always make us wait. So they thought it was cool that the generals had to wait. But the problem is they were waiting for something that really, if I was sitting in that audience as a career person and I, was not myself, I was not who I am, but I was devoted to the uniform and devoted to my career. And I was sitting in that audience. I would be very concerned about the quality of knowledge and capability of the leadership. And that would be two people that are the military's leadership, the Secretary of Defense and the President. I would be extremely concerned. And
well, the president changes his mind and he changes his focus. It seems a dozen times a day.
Yep. He does.
This has got to drive serious military people. You have some generals there that have tens of thousands of human beings under their command. The crazy General Donahue, who said we can take Kaliningrad in 45 minutes, whatever. He's got 100,000 troops that work for him. Nevertheless, it must drive people like him crazy that the president changes his mind.
Yeah, I'm sure that it does. And these people that currently are wearing 3 and 4 stars on their shoulders in our military, they have their own culture. It's a boutique war culture. Okay, we haven't had a major challenge, but we've gone and nation built and done wars for Israel, and we've fomented war in Ukraine, and we've done all these things that are not really defensive wars. And of course, our military is not oriented to defend this country. And we know that, and they know that. But these generals have come up through that system, and they rely more than others, I think, more than previous generations, on the quality of thinking and leadership of the president, because the president is picking the wars that we participate in. The president is saying, oh, go do this, go do that, take this city, in the United States, which is a whole nother story. But the president is picking targets. And here they meet this guy in this grand meeting, and he rambles on, shows no understanding of what it is they do, has no direct instructions for them other than do what I say. That's pretty concerning. If it was me, if I was one of these guys, I would think many will put their papers in after this. And if that was the goal of the meeting, fine.
Well, with Ritter and Colonel McGregor predicted the same, off the record to me, predicted the same thing.
Well,
If Ritter had a star on his shoulder, according to Ritter, he would have ripped the star off right there in front of Trump.
Yeah, I believe it. But no, I think a lot of these guys, I have contempt for so many of them, so it's hard for me to put myself in their shoes. But I do believe, based on their view of what it is that they do for this country, that this was a blatant insult, a loss of confidence that they would have. It's not just that the president doesn't really have confidence in them, but they have every reason to have lost confidence in President Trump, for sure, based on what he said. If he hadn't talked so much about himself and about stupid things and about things that aren't true, that would be one thing. But he went in there with all of the things that Trump's enemies label him with, and he presented that to them. So yeah, it's time for so many of them to retire, and they can all retire whenever they choose, and they should.
Here's Trump asking for and expecting applause. See if you can hear any.
Fantastic job. I've never walked into a room so silent before. This is very, don't laugh. You're not allowed to do that. You know what? Just have a good time. And if you want to applaud, you applaud. And if you want to do anything you want, you can do anything you want. And if you don't like what I'm saying, you can leave the room. Of course, there goes your rank, there goes your future. But you just feel nice and loose, okay? Because we're all on the same team. And I was told that, sir, you won't hear a murmur in the room. I said, we got to loosen these guys up a little bit. So you just have a good time. But I want to thank...
Nobody applauded. They're not going to applaud. I don't know. Maybe military culture tells you don't applaud the commander-in-chief. If this were World War II and that were FDR, they would have been going wild.
Yeah, no, the military will applaud. Generals will applaud. They're people like anybody else. And also, there was no, what was missing in this address today was any type of connection between Hegseth and Trump, and the connection that they might have and should have with the generals that lead this massive.
Colonel, I am sure that Hegseth was miserable that Trump spoiled his party. Remember, this was supposed to be Pete's party. Yeah. And then at the last minute, the president says, I'm going to show up. I won't talk too long, Pete, but I'm going to show up.
Yeah, exactly.
And completely Bigfoots him.
Yep. No, it's true. And again, that is the casual kind of approach to being in charge of this great, massive, expensive military that we have that's deployed in 155 countries, engaged in wars and soon to be wars and conflicts around the planet. You have to have a certain seriousness about that. And if you don't, it could be a big problem in how, because Trump needs these guys to do what he says. And if I was sitting in that audience, and I was, in a sense, watching it, and all these generals and admirals there, they must have been, the anger that many of them might have felt, I would understand that totally. If they were angry, if they wondered why they were wearing the uniform of this country, when this country has so little knowledge, the leadership has so little knowledge of what a military is supposed to be doing. And that is defend. And honestly, if you ask military guys of any rank, they want to defend the country. They don't want to go fight imperial wars. They never do. None of them do. They obey orders. But I don't know. It was kind of a clown show. And I think I don't know if that's what they intended. I don't know if that's what Trump intended. I don't think so. And that's what's scary about it. Because it's one thing if you said, well, we're going to punish all these guys. We're going to make them come here and listen to crazy talk for 25 minutes. And we're going to punish them. We're going to show them who's in charge, make them wait 25 minutes. Okay, that's one thing. That is something that has an objective, and it may or may not work. But I got the feeling after watching this that they were just simply unprepared. They had no idea what they wanted to communicate to these guys. And that's very concerning. Americans pay a lot of money, $1 trillion a year and more for this military. And this is how we manage it.
Here's
is bad problem.
I wonder if this made its way over to them. Here's what he said. It's a threat as he was leaving the White House, getting on a helicopter. This is truly remarkable. Chris?
I'm going to be meeting with generals and with admirals and with leaders. And if I don't like somebody, I'm going to fire him right on the spot.
Yeah.
Shades of the show that made him popular nationally, The Apprentice.
That's right. And it seems like, they had the great Patton backdrop, the American flag. And it was all theater and no substance.
Right.
It's very disturbing. And
it's got to be disturbing for you and people like you who made a career in the military, who were proud of their work, who still refer to themselves or are referred to publicly as their title. Now you got generals who, if they could, would have hidden their faces this morning.
Yeah. That's H.L. Mencken, says eventually with you get the government you deserve with the democracy. Right. It's going to be really stupid. I don't have his quote proper, but it's possible we've satisfied that peak stupidity. We went through Biden with his dementia, which was a problem, but that's a physical problem, not necessarily that he was stupid. But now we have Trump version 2, and he's proving H.L. Mencken to be correct. So very scary, very scary.
I'm going to play one more for you because we talked about it earlier. The unconstitutional use of troops in the streets. I'm not a fan of Governor Pritzker of Illinois. I can't even think of any issue on which we agree except for this. But he was very angry and articulate. Here he is, I believe, earlier today.
Moments ago, the Illinois National Guard received word that the Department of Homeland Security has sent a memo to the Department of War seeking the deployment of 100 military troops to Illinois, claiming a need for the protection of ICE personnel and facilities. What I have been warning of is now being realized. One thing is clear, none of what Trump is doing is making Illinois safer. In Broadview, people nonviolently holding signs and chanting against brutality, expressing their First Amendment rights, have been regularly attacked with chemical agents like tear gas, pepper spray, rubber bullets, and flashbangs. Agents reportedly unholstered their guns and pointed them at protesters. In their own words, ICE intended to unleash, quote, a shit show in the Broadview community.
There you go. A little crude at the end, but everybody knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, I think Trump has a fantasy that the people love him because, he had a lot of, he won the election, won the popular vote last time. He talked about that to the generals as if that has any relevance at this point. But he thinks that the people back him, and he doesn't realize that whenever a group is attacked, we always join together for the underdog or for the one closest to us, our community, right? So I stand with Pritzker on this, and he's right. If this was 1859 or 1860, and the president was sending troops into states, do you know how serious that is? I mean, that is incredibly concerning. And people don't think it in those terms, but this country is highly vulnerable to civil war. But that word is tossed around. But it almost sounds like Trump wants that. And he assumes that the people in these various states will side with the federal government. And I think he's sadly mistaken if he thinks that. And this is some incredibly scary stuff going on.
Yeah, the clip we ran, I was wrong. It was the Governor Pritzker yesterday. So if anything has happened today, I'm even though I live and work in a news environment and a newsroom, I'm unaware of it. Karen, great chatting with you. We'll look forward to seeing you again. Keep those great pieces coming. If you haven't seen Colonel Kwiatkowski's piece in Assembly of Generals, half of it is dreadfully serious and half of it is hilarious, and all of it is worth reading. You can get it at Judge Knapp. Thank you, Colonel. We'll see you again soon.
Okay, thank you, Judge.
Sure. Coming up tomorrow, Wednesday at 8 in the morning, Professor Gilbert Doctorow. At 1 in the afternoon, Professor Glenn Deason. At 2 in the afternoon, Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson. At 3 in the afternoon, we missed him last week, the great Phil Giraldi. Judge Napolitano for Judging Freedom.